The city of Peshawar in the northwestern frontier province, close to Afghanistan, has the last decade gotten used to live under threats from the Taliban militants. Few women dare to venture outside their homes without being completely covered in a burqa. Harassment and intimidation is commonplace, as are kidnappings and bomb explosions, especially for those who don't follow the terrorists' decrees.
और बकायदा कम ने ज़ख्मियान शुल और उस इन्हीं टाइम जब को ना राजू बच्चों ताखिरी ज़रूर कुछ रहा मुंगा वापस येदा तमन्ना कुछ मुंगा वापस जुएंदी कोरता जो काया दा बाज़ारी काया रो बाज़ारी.
Sarfaraz Hkan is a wholesale distributor of mostly Indian music and DVD films, which are considered un-Islamic by the Taliban. After several threats and attacks, the bullet holes are there for everyone to see. His shops now have their own security. Many policemen have been captured and later executed by the Taliban. So it's understandable that the underpaid police is reluctant to openly engage the militants, especially when support from the government is lacking. So it's better to keep the CDs hidden in black plastic bags.
हुकूमत से न लकम तो इस किस्म से ताउन नहीं है हुकूमत उल्टा मुद्दा उसी कार बंद की बेदेव की बाम एहतजाज करे बाल के बयान न और करूँ पुलिस खिलाफ शेर माते ची तालिबान का लगे पुलिस के.
Peshawar is in a state of bated breath, and the Taliban are currently keeping a low profile. The Pakistani government has repeatedly stated that the war on the Taliban will be extended into the tribal areas bordering Afghanistan. That will be a much bigger challenge for the army than the SWAT operation.
So I don't think that it can be a complete victory. Maybe they will be able to defeat Taliban in certain places, but they won't be able to achieve victory in all the areas.
For journalists, the situation is extremely difficult, and there seems to be no hope for an immediate improvement.
Unfortunately, we don't have the kind of leadership which can actually lead Pakistan to survival.
Since the partition from India, the military has held a strong grip over Pakistan, and civil society and judiciary is weak. Politics has been tarnished by corruption and inefficiency. After the general elections in February 2008, and with the resignation of General Musharraf, Pakistan now has a civilian government, and recently the Chief Justice was reinstated after having been suspended by Musharraf. But human rights standards are considered low, and respect for civil rights almost non-existent. At the University of Rawalpindi, student leader Kunumal Asif got first-hand experience of Pakistan's repressive system.
In our hostel, there were no electricity, no water, and the people were listening. And the students were really worried about the bad conditions of the hostel. So we decided that we will protest against the university administration, and we will fight for our rights.
More than 1,000 students turned out to protest, and the leader, Asif, got beaten by the police, and afterwards was fined 5,000 rupees by the university administration for, as they claimed, causing unrest. He appealed, but that made things worse.
I'm getting threats, and I'm receiving calls from the agencies, from the law enforcement agencies. I do have the record as well of those calls, and that was not a direct threat, but as they said that, stop these, what you are doing, just stop that.
The weakness and inefficiency of the society to provide services have led to deep distrust to governments, exacerbated by periods of military rule. All has led to support for militant groups and call for Islamic Sharia law.
The Taliban, the militants, whom produced them? I think the dictatorship produced Taliban's, dictatorship produced militants as well.
What is needed in Pakistan above all is rule of law. Everybody should be accountable and held accountable. For that, it's absolutely essential that you have an independent judiciary. But let's not forget one thing. The only way you're going to have rule of law, and which is going to be the basic precondition to put an end to these practices, is if there's still going to be a democracy. Back to military rule, back to square one.
One of the most severe violations of human rights occurred during the military rule under General Musharraf. Thousands of persons have disappeared in Pakistan.
And there was a really good seminar.
About 2 years ago, some people from agencies, they raided my house with the Kalashnikovs, loaded with the guns, pistols, and they asked about my son.
Both of Ghulam Murtaza's sons were picked up by Pakistani security agencies without charges and without even admitting they were in custody. After 7 months, one of his sons were released, but he still refuses to appear in front of the camera. Torture and ill treatment are said to be routine in Pakistani prisons.
He was so mentally retarded, he was so mentally punished that he doesn't bother to talk with us on this subject. That where he was, why did they take him, and where he was living, and what was the behavior of the agencies with him.
The fight for justice and respect for human rights in Pakistan goes on. According to Amnesty International, there are hundreds of victims of enforced disappearance, including children as young as 10 years old. Many of the detentions were justified in the name of the US-led war on terror and were later handed over to the US. 2/3 of all prisoners in Guantanamo are from Pakistan.
They think that they're terrorists in Pakistan, we have to pick them and we can receive bounties of dollars from there and from America. That's all.
Aisha's father, who is a businessman, was picked up in July 2005 and has since then been one of those who are kept in secret without charge or trial. Aisha and her mother Amina are among those who wage a long-lasting campaign for the illegally detained. Like many cases, there are eyewitness testimony as to their detention, but no official response, not even now under a civilian government.
I just feel desperate. I wish I would be someone to do this thing all, to make these things right. And that's so awful. I cannot say anything, but they should feel. They have daughters, they have hearts too. You should feel it.
The small demonstration moves on. Tirelessly for years, Aisha Masoods and her organization has been working for the release of the illegally detained by all possible means. After having toured almost around the world for justice in Pakistan, Aisha every day receives much support.
You can see every day we have nearly 50 of them coming every day. I have 2 big boxes which are full of these letters.
The Supreme Court will soon resume working with the cases, but still no response from the government.
In the previous regime, we know that there was a dictatorship. People were sold. But this is democracy.
And neither Aisha nor her daughter have any hopes in the new government, even though there is now a totally different policy from the United States.
The deadlock is not with the US, the deadlock is here. They are not demanding the way they should. They just say it very humbly, very meekly. They should say it more confident and to be ready to do anything. This is the demand of their people. Sure.